And good evening, or good afternoon, or good morning, depending upon where you are around the world. I am Marcus Holmes, the love activist, and this is Love and Stuff live and in living color. I hope that you will click share and tag someone to join us, whether you're watching us from inside of Love and Stuff or the Facebook page, the Love and Stuff community page, the Marcus R. Holmes page, Twitch TV, YouTube events. We're grateful that you're here, and we're hoping that you will click share, tag 5 of your closest Facebook friends, YouTube friends or connections, 5 of your more popular Twitch TV connections or Facebook connections to join us in the discussion. I'm so excited to have you here and joining us every Tuesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So for those of you that are watching overseas, I know it is morning time for some of you, and I appreciate it. I hope you will click share and tag some folks to join us in tonight's discussion, which again comes from the inbox. I'm just putting the topic and pinning it in a couple of the rooms, and I hope that if you're watching us on another room, that you will click share and tag someone to join us in the discussion. All right. I see that some folks have come through, and we are going to thank you all for those of you that have stopped by on various pages, platforms. While we're getting ready to introduce the topic, I want to remind you that we are on the road to grateful. We are on the road to grateful, on the road to Thanksgiving. Thank to live, live to thank. The Gratefulness Journey every day is available. What are you doing in the next 30 days to transform your life? And it is available on Amazon, and you can get that today. All right, we're going to go right into the topic. All that I need for you to do in this first call to action is click share. Joy Pascal has joined us. Thank you so much. Click share and tag someone to join us. I've shared in several groups, and I'd like to have your feedback. And if you're interested in sharing your feedback live with me, let me know, and we will get you here live. And so I'm excited, of course, to have you here. And just before I go into that topic, as you're clicking share and tagging 5 of your closest Facebook friends, YouTube connections, or Twitch TV followers, 5 of the more popular ones, I want you to prepare to join us on Thanksgiving Day from 11 to 8. We will have several rooms open, virtual rooms for people who may not be able to be with their families, who've decided that they're not going to have the large family gathering, or maybe your family lives across the country, or you're like many people who've been impacted by the hundreds of thousands, million people that have passed away resulting of this deadly virus, and you don't want to be alone on the holiday. Well, we did this last year from 11 to 8, and we're looking both for volunteers and for people who want to just join us. You'll be able to come in the room. There'll be a room where there's just laughter, room that you just want to cry, room if you want to get some prayer, room if you want to talk about recipes and food, whatever you want to do. There'll be several rooms, virtual rooms available for you, and they will be staffed by members of the Love and Stuff community. So if you're interested in joining us in that effort, we had a wonderful time. We took shifts because we don't want to take the time away from your family and your cooking. But if you can set aside even an hour, even a half hour to come and to share with somebody who is going to be maybe not with their family this year, share some of the love as we go into this holiday season. We're on the road to grateful, and we want you to join us on that road. All right. So I'm going into the topic, and I hope that you will click share and join into this topic that comes from the inbox. We're back to the inbox today, and we're talking from the inbox about splitting up and splitting it. Here from the inbox topic, this gentleman says, me and my girl broke up after 4 years. We've been living together for 3. Okay. I now realize that I used her weight gain as an excuse to cheat, he says. She found out about a year ago that I was cheating, and we've been fighting ever since. Ever since. Yelling, screaming, shoving, and some car ramming, he says. I recently found out that she had been cheating too with someone around our circle. We have 4 months left on our lease where they're living, and I'm willing to pay my part for 2 of those months, he's saying, while we get another roommate to live with her for the other 2. She says that she won't live with nobody else for the last 2 months. I could just leave. But as a man, a business owner, and a father, he cites from a previous relationship, I'm trying to be civil. What should I do? So I want to hear from you. Uh, what a situation. And I did ask some follow-up questions. One of them was, are you sure that this is over? And he said, oh, it's over. Anytime we are getting physical and we got to get law enforcement involved, it's over. And I said, well, is it over for her? And he says, she's the one that said, get out. After I found out, he says, after he found out that she was cheating and confronted her, she asked him to get out. And fighting ensued and the like. So I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. What do you say? What would you do? All right. Click share, tag someone to join us in this discussion. Now, as I broached it and saw some people commenting earlier, yes, you could break the lease. Of course you could, right? And in this day and time, courts may be backed up. In certain, depending on your state and stuff, when one tenant breaks the lease, the landlord could go after everybody on the lease, right? Jointly and severally. So the landlord could say, get out, right? So there are, and breaking a lease, right, could down the road, it could impact your credit. It could, there are things that could happen if you break the lease. So yes, breaking the lease is an option. Someone said, well, just break the lease. Well, I mean, he could just walk out the door, right? And the landlord could come after him for the rent, could come after her, she could come after him. That could be the case, right? If there are collections and a way to impact your credit, it could, right? And he could say, because there has been some violence involved, he could seek a restraining order. And depending on how the landlord sees that, there could also be actions taken depending on your state, blah, 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 right? But he's trying to say, I don't want to harm her, leave her in a lurch, because they, as a couple, for the years that they've lived together in this place, have split the bills 50-50. And so he's paying 50% of the rent, the lease. He's paying 50% of whatever associated costs, utilities, things necessary. Okay. And she's saying, no, it's your responsibility till the end of the lease. And I'm not going to be looking for a roommate. Matter of fact, don't you look for one to bring one in living in here. Fine. If you don't want to live here, you're just going to be paying rent here while you're living somewhere else. What would you do? I want to hear from you. What would you do? All right. Thank those of you that are joining us, and I hope that you will click share and tag some folks to join us. I pinned the topic just about in every room. I've tried to pin it in most of the rooms anyway. And I'm hoping that you will chime in and tell us, what would you do? See if I can see who is here. Give us a shout out. I'm not seeing you. I see Terry Fairley has joined us. Okay. But I can't see. All right. Trying to get down to some of the comments. I don't see any comments as yet. That's all right. We wait on your comments. All right. Let me look into the. All right. Fantastic. All right. So what would you do? Okay. While I'm awaiting your comments, I do want to mention that, as is in the topic, they've been together for 4 years. So after a year of being together, they're not married, but after a year of being together, they decided to move in. And they secured a lease where they're living. And it's been a kind of an annual lease. and there are 4 months left on the lease, but they have decided they are no longer going to stay together. Okay. He has come to some understanding, he says, about why he feels that he cheated. And he was not interested in finding out why she cheated. At the point that he found out about her cheating and that it was within around their circle of relationships, that he decided this was a time to cut their losses and to move on. So he's fully prepared to move on, has started to move things out of the house. They had some discussion about things that they have accumulated together, and they haven't quite come to terms on all of those things, but most of those things they have, and he's begun the process of moving his stuff out. And so, should he keep paying rent to keep some peace? Okay, Autumn Nicole Holmes has joined us. Thank you so much. I hope you will click share and tag some of your friends. I'd love to hear some of their thoughts and opinions on this topic, which should be pinned, I think, just about in every room. All right, pinned in just about every room. Okay, very good. What would you do if you were in a relationship where it had become toxic? It had become violent, and neither one of you were being faithful to the relationship. So you decided that you don't want to be in the relationship. But your partner says, so you have an obligation to pay your part until we part. We can split up, but we're not going to split it. You're going to have to pay your part. Do you agree with that? Let me hear from you. Do you agree that you should pay your part, even if you decide that it's not a good idea for you all to stay together? Now, there has been police involvement. They have come fisticuffs. So the good thing to do is to get out, right? But if there are months left on the lease, what do you do? Okay, want to hear from you? What do you do? Okay, I'm not seeing. I'm hoping that you can hear me. I'm not seeing myself on these. Okay. All right. All right. I do see a comment. Autumn says he has an obligation to pay the rent. He went into an agreement knowing the possibility that the relationship could end at any point. Fair point. So I'm asking you, Autumn, of course, if there were some fisticuffs, we wouldn't be having that, right? We wouldn't be having that. But would you volunteer if you wanted to leave? If it were you leaving, would you volunteer to pay your part, or would you break the lease? Now I know there is, and Autumn is going to become an attorney one day, on her way to doing that. I know in some states, sweetie, there are laws about restraining orders and domestic violence and its impact on a lease, right? But there is no restraining order in this case, just to say it that way. But I'm wondering, would you get out? Would you say, okay, I'm gonna send my rent? Or would you say, I'm gonna break the lease? I'm gonna take my chances. If my partner sues me, sue me. If the landlord sues me, sue me. I pay it then. Or would you just go ahead and pay your part just to keep it peaceable? What would you do? And thank those of you that are joining us across platforms. I appreciate your joining, and I hope that you will click share, tag someone to join us. Autumn says, I would volunteer to pay my part if I could not find someone to take over the lease that the partner could agree to. Okay. I think that's a very mature position, I think. So in this case, she is saying, don't look for nobody, because no one else can stay here. And if you don't want to stay here, that's fine, but pay your share. If that were the position, Autumn, how would you respond to that? All right. I hope you will click share and tag someone to join us. I know we're up against Queen Sugar, but I know that you are across various platforms and in various groups that are affiliated with the Love and Stuff community. And I hope that you will click share from any and all of them and join us in this topic, which again is from the inbox. And we try to keep as true to the information as we can in the inbox without divulging anybody's specific details. But I think it's, I think splitting up is it's big folk stuff, right? It's grown folk stuff, and splitting it is equally grown folk stuff, especially when you're not in a marriage, maybe in a covenant. How you divvy up and divide the things could be really important. Autumn says, because of fear of legal ramifications, I would pay that dang rent. Good girl. Good young lady. Yeah, I think that you're right. You could be sued by your partner. You could be sued by the landlord. Jointly and severally means he or she could come against either one of you or both of you, whoever he thinks has the better ability to pay. So very easily you could be sued in the situation. And it could go as far as could be a collection, right, on your credit, right? It could be reported to your credit agency, to the bureaus, right, potentially. So it could impact your credit. And that might be a concern, for some people. You've been staying somewhere for 3 years. You want to keep your good credit going. But having the discussion about separating amicably is big stuff, because when infidelity and rage and PTSD and so many other things are factors in the relationship, it isn't easy to just say, I'm going my way and you're going your way. Underneath that somewhere could be the truest love that you've ever experienced, or the largest betrayal that you've ever experienced, right? And so just walking away from somebody might not be that easy to do. And we know that there are people who have difficulty walking away from even some of the most traumatic and abusive situations and relationships, or situationships, we might even call them, right? Daisy Moselle has come. Bilal Muhammad, both of you, I hope you will click share and tag some folks to join us in this discussion. We're talking from the inbox and wondering, how do you navigate when you're not on good footing because you have found that you've been betrayed, or found that your betrayal has been matched with betrayal, right? And so all of the feelings of trauma and PTSD and other things that you might be contending with come full center into the equation, because you feel as if you might not need to be paying this rent, even though you've agreed to pay the rent. Keith Gregory has joined us. I hope you will click share and tag someone to join us. We're talking from the inbox topic. A gentleman and his living girlfriend have broken up after 4 years, but 3 years of living together, and they have 4 months left on their lease. And he is willing to pay for 2 months while they find another roommate to stay with her for the last 2 months. And she is saying, absolutely not. You're not moving anyone else in here, and you will pay your half of all expenses as we have done for these 3 years. And he's wondering, well, now I don't know if that's what I should be doing, because I'm leaving because we can't live together. We're fighting. There's been law enforcement called. We have shoved, we have pushed, we have cursed, we have screamed, we have yelled, and I can't live here. And so I want to be kind as a business owner, someone who's concerned about his reputation. I want to be kind and say, Here's 2 months rent. Let's find you a roommate. What would you do? Would you say I'm breaking that lease, or are you like Autumn? Because of the fear of legal ramifications, I'm gonna pay that dang on rent. What would you do? If you're just joining us, we're live on Love and Stuff. Thank you for joining us on Facebook Live via the Love and Stuff community page, Marcus Our Homes page, Twitch TV, and YouTube events. If you're on any or all of those, click share right now and tag someone to join in this topic from the inbox. A guy who has been living with his girlfriend for 3 years. They've been together for 4 years. They are now breaking up, and he's saying, let's split up and let's not split it. Let's not split the bills for the balance of this 4 months of our lease, but I'm going to pay 2 months, and then you're going to find another roommate. I'll help you find another roommate for the balance of the 2. And she is saying, absolutely not. So if you're just joining us, you don't know, but they broke up once he found out about her fidelity and tired of all of the fighting, but her fidelity with someone with close around their circle of relationships. And a year prior, he cheated and she found out. So they both are having monogamy issues, and they're having anger issues, and they're fighting and screaming, cursing, pushing, shoving, law enforcement being called. And he's saying, you know what? It's a wrap. I'm not going to live like this anymore. I'm leaving. She said, get out. He said, okay, I will. I don't want to live like this anymore. And he's saying, I tell you what, I'm going to pay 2 months of these 4 months, just like I would every month, all my 50%. But after that, you're going to need to have a roommate. He's saying, is that right? Because she's saying, absolutely not. You owe all 4 of these months, and I'm not living with anybody else. What do you think is fair? What would you do? I want to hear from you. Drop it in the comments. What would you do? Is that fair? Is that reasonable? He's not saying I'm going to leave you in the lurch. He's saying, let's use these 2 months so you can find a roommate. I can help you find a roommate for the balance of those 2 months. And she's saying, I'm not having somebody live with me for 2 months. You just pay your part. And so I asked him, do you think she's really finished? And he said, no, I think she's done. She's the one that said, get out. I said, and sometimes we tell people get out when we're angry, right? Get the heck out. Get your bag and get out, right? We say that, but do we really mean it? And he is of the opinion that, yes, she means it. I mean it. It's time to move on. It's time to move on. What do you say? Would you pay for all 4 months, or would you only pay 2? Would you break the lease and not pay any? What would you do? I'm interested to hear from you. Drop your comments down below, and I'd love to share that. And if you want to come live with me, I'd love to share that as well. Bilal says he needs to pay his part, I think you're saying, and move on. How much is his piece worth? I think he's saying Bilal's piece is worth 2 months. That's what it sounds like to me. He's saying my piece is worth 50% for 2 months. I pay my share because they split their bills down the center. And he's saying I pay mine for 2 months. That would bring me peace. And he's wondering, okay, do I keep paying? Do I keep paying those extra 2 months? But Bilal, I think you're saying keep on paying and keep on trucking, right? And I asked him, would that bring to him some financial harm? Would that be a detriment to him? He said he could swing it. He's a business owner. He could swing it. And but he would not want to do that. He wants to live, he says, in peace. And they have had the law enforcement called. It's gotten to that level. Well, he needs to stay with her for 2 months and pay the last. So it's 4 months left on the lease. He's willing to pay 2 of those months. Are you saying he should pay all 4 and stay in there with her, even though they have become physical? Now, I want to be careful in saying they become physical, because from my questions that I ask, it has not been, he did not characterize it as, and maybe he wouldn't, as punching, but he said certainly there was shoving and headlocks and restraint to, keep the blows and punches from coming, and that law enforcement has been involved. So to me, that's physical enough to call it physical. I don't want to diminish anything that's physical, and I don't want to trump it up to be more than anything that it is. Physical is physical, and if you're getting physical with somebody, uh, violent with somebody, you need space and you probably need some assistance. Okay. No shade to anybody that's ever been physical. I'm saying if physical is your go to, then we probably need to try some other methods. And one of them might be separation. Bilal says, um, toxic, time to move on, to police involved. Okay. Thank you for that. James Williams, one of my favorite people in the world, has come in here. Actor, bishop extraordinaire. I saw him in a movie recently. I'm just so excited. Question mark is his name on the lease? Both of their names are on the lease. They're both on the lease. Great question. They're both on the lease. Bilal says pay the 4 months and cut your losses, peace for 4 months time of rent. All right. You say that's the price of peace. Okay. All right. That's the price of peace. And he's saying, hey, I could break this lease, right? And then, as I said at the outset, depending upon the state, right? In most states, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not giving him legal advice. I didn't, but I do happen to know a few attorneys. But in a number of states, the person who breaks the lease, because the lease typically says jointly and severally, means the landlord could come after you individually or both of you. The landlord could come after the person who he allows to remain, because if someone breaks the lease, in some leases, he could evict everybody. He could terminate the lease. Okay. So if the landlord decides to allow the person who remains to stay, he could go after that person. If they short pay the rent, he could evict that person and go after them. And that person could then go after the other person, right? Or he can go after the person he thinks has the best ability to pay. So because you break the lease doesn't mean that you're off the hook. And it doesn't mean that there aren't ramifications that can happen down the road, even if it's down the road, right? And I talked about it could impact your credit depending on how this goes. So I think he wants to avoid all that. Being a business owner, he doesn't want to have to do that kind of thing, right? Okay, the lease is an agreement with leaseholder, not the girlfriend. Honor the lease and get out of Dodge. All right, all right. I think those are some great things. I definitely think if there is physical something happening, I like that he says I'll pay 2 of the months, and let's find you a roommate. It's just that she's not for that. And in my thinking, if she is angry with him, now I asked him this question because some of you that might just be joining and you're clicking share right now, right? But some of you that might be joining might not know he cheated first a year ago. So 2 years into it, I think I'm getting my math right. He cheated. And he says he owns that he used her weight gain as an excuse to cheat. That's not an excuse. He owns that. Sounds like he's on this road to getting some healing from that. Okay. He recently learned that she was cheating with somebody that their friends all know. Okay. And it was that revelation that caused this big brouhaha, if you will, and caused the altercation that caused the law enforcement involvement, after which she told him, get out. Now, they're both of their names on the lease, so get out. You can't tell me to get out when my name is on the lease, but because there is this part that could be domestic violence, maybe her anger is to his response to her infidelity, even though she dealt with his infidelity, which is a whole nother other counseling session for them, right? But sometimes we respond to what the other person has done as if it's something worse than what we have done. We get shorter on the memory for us. We short on grace for them, long on memory for us, or short on memory for us, however that may go. And to penalize him, she wants to say, you stay right here or you pay. And so it seems like a battle of the wheels, right? It's really not about split up. We split up physically, sexually. We split up to some degree mentally. Now we want to split up financially. And that obligation is a little different, as you've heard Autumn say and James Williams say. Welcome, Brenda Moraney. I hope you will click share and tag someone to join us. It's that financial one that's holding us together that you might want to have some more discussion about if you don't want to pay those other 2 months. Because probably underneath that, undergirding that, is this resistance to any other resolve except you suffer. And it could be you suffer because you made me suffer a year ago. Now, that's not good grace in a relationship to hold on to things from years ago. But anybody like me that's ever been in any kind of relationship where you have a memory of what someone has done and you never really let loose that memory, you never let it go as if it could be a different outcome. You never said it was what it was and I'm gonna let it go. Anybody ever been that? You can give me a like or love if that's you. And sometimes we hold on to that, and the things we experience uncover that thing that we never fully dealt with. And we get back to that ground zero, that same place where we were just as angry, felt just as betrayed. And now we want to take some revenge. We want to exact revenge, or we want some power. And sometimes we will use financial relationships or money to exert power. So I asked if that was something that may be happening here. And he said, well, could be. But I know that I cannot live there. And so, as many of you have said, I'm wondering, what is the cost of your peace? Ask yourself that. And you might even be able to bless this person by putting it in the comments by saying, the cost of my peace in the past was, if you're willing to share. Because I know for certain that he is going to watch this if he isn't tuned in somewhere. There are ways, if your page is private, I can't see that you're watching it. So I'm sure he's tuned in or will tune into this, and you might help him, because that's what we do with these inbox discussions. You see, it's the hope that someone can come anonymously and gain from your perspective without judgment something that might inform his or her perspective about something that he or she is contemplating. And so maybe he will hear from you, the cost of my peace was so great that here was the cost of my peace. I had to do this. Because right now he doesn't have that willingness. It's a struggle of wills, maybe. WILLS, right? To say, you know what? As James has said, as Balawa said, as Autumn said, pay that dang rent and get out of Dodge. Maybe that to him feels like some conceding, some acquiescing. And I think we have to all ask ourselves, when we get into situations that might be volatile in situationships inside of relationships, because sometimes we forget that we're in relationships when the situation happens. Sometimes a situation can overshadow a whole relationship. And I don't condone violence. I don't condone infidelity. But sometimes people say, how could you get past that? Some people get past an indiscretion, I will call it, a betrayal, because the totality of the relationship is more than the situationship, if that makes sense. It's more than just that one situation. Now that's not for the faint at heart. Because if someone has calculated to go across town, look at an added drama, and sleep in somebody else's bed, even if for 39 minutes or 7 minutes, depending, and forsake their relationship, their marriage, their home, their children for that time of pleasure, that ain't for the faint of heart. But there are some people who see the value, the broader picture of their entire relationship and see this as a moment, this situation as a moment that has impacted it. Now, it could impact it greatly, but not every situationship should overshadow the entire relationship. And so sometimes you have to look at the situationship in the context of your relationship to be able to say, okay, what are we really trying to do here? What is the price of our peace as it relates to this relationship that was 4 years long, and we've had a year and a half of bad times, bad decisions, and maybe there are some things that we could dig deeper to find out why we made the choices that we made. Again, I don't condone stay in it because y'all fighting. I'm not saying that. Stay in it because he cheated or she cheated. I can't make that decision for you and wouldn't recommend it for you either way. It is a personal decision, and whether or not you see the relationship as more than the situationship. That's that's on a case by case basis. But you have to consider that you've had more than broken down, busted, and disgusted times to consider of how you wind out your relationship, how you come to resolve, and how you get to peace. Sometimes you have to take the L to win. If peace is the price, move on, learn from it. I know for me, I don't like sleeping with one eye open. That makes great sense. And I would just, and I think that's going to be great for him to read. And I wonder what the L is. How do you lose and what do you lose? Because the one L that I don't want you to lose is the learn from it, the lesson. And the lesson might be that both of you have to do some changing internally and be willing to extend the grace that might have been extended to you. Now, I'm not saying again, I don't know the details of was it his best friend? I didn't get that information, who in the circle she was with. But remember, he cheated the year before and she stayed in the relationship. Now, why? Was that healthy? Did that make sense? Why? So there could be a lot of lessons in here. And one of them could be we need to sit down and talk with someone to help us wind out where we don't agree. We haven't been successful in coming together and coming to a consensus. Maybe a third party will help us to do that so that we can part amicably. Money is replaceable, but yes, he must define the L and learn it. It may be predefined. Sometimes I believe, Bilal, you don't get to define your lessons. They're predefined. What you get to do is decide if you're going to learn them. That you can define. Sometimes the lessons are already defined for you. The curriculum is set. The instructor has been hired. The textbook has been ordered. The question is, will you learn what's being taught? Sometimes. Not all the time. But sometimes we're trying to say, now, what is the lesson? The lesson is your role is to learn it, to get into class, to respect the teacher, to follow along the syllabus of course, not to be distracted so that you get the lesson. And maybe the lesson is, how do we split up and split it up? How do we part amicably so that both parties feel whole? And how do we do that without a power struggle about what's fair? I love that in the inbox discourse that he said most of what they have accumulated together, they have come to some understanding about splitting. Most of what they've accumulated, furniture, TV, stuff like that, right? But it's this rent, it's this lease. And I think it's the final hurrah, the final goodbye. And maybe that's what has to be addressed. Maybe there's some apologies. There's some humility that happens to say, I know I was wrong and I blew up at you for something I did to you, that I did the same thing, same kind of thing to you a year ago. Or maybe I didn't blow up a year ago. I tried to hang in there, but you still had the same behavior toward me. So this is where I went. So maybe there's some humility and ownership. There's some vulnerability where you say, here's what I did wrong in this. Here's where I'm wrong. How can we come to some closure? Because we are definitely closing. How can we come to some closure that we can both feel comfortable with? We might not feel good that we parted because we had a great run. But how can we bring some closure to this where it doesn't hurt you or hurt me any more than we're already hurting? You've heard the saying, hurting people hurt people. And if you've ever been hurt and you be real honest about it, sometimes you wanted that other person to feel how you felt. Though I believe it is never our job to make people feel how we felt. It's never our job to do that. It's our job to feel how we felt and live to tell about it. It is the job of other people to empathize with what we're feeling. Say, I want him to feel as bad as I felt, but that's not his job. His job is to have empathy for how you feel, even maybe how he's contributed to that feeling, and then have grace for how you respond to it. It's not his job to know how you feel, not my job to know how you feel. It's my job to know how I feel and to live to tell the story and tell the story about it, right? It's my job to sit in the center of what I've experienced, learn the lesson, and move forward in that lesson and teach others. See, I believe this is a great big earth school, and Jesus is the Rabboni. He's the master teacher, and he's created teachers and facilitators, lessons and classrooms, all for people to learn lessons to teach others. And all of those lessons tie back to love. And when we go back to that love consideration about, do I really love me? Well, if I really love me, the mark of how well I love me should be how I love others, my neighbor as myself, right? So in the context of this today, well, we have detoured from that love to the left or to the right. I think we would all agree. But at the end of the day, how would I want to be treated if I were in the other person's situation? How would I want to be treated if I found out that your response to my indiscretion was worse than mine to yours? Is there any grace for my response? And how would I want you to treat me after that response? How would I want to be treated in the situation? And if we can be open and vulnerable to having those kinds of conversations, we might come to a different conclusion at the end. I don't agree necessarily that someone should break the lease. I wouldn't advise anybody to do anything which I consider, which would be illegal. Vanita Smith, thank you for joining us. I hope you will click share. I wouldn't necessarily say, not without a conversation, pay off for a month. It is your obligation, but there is a way to get out of that lease in the regard if the landlord is amenable to it and you all find another roommate. But getting to that place cannot happen without a conversation. And in that conversation, I think the hallmark of that conversation has to be humility, or hallmarks of that conversation have to be humility, vulnerability, and grace. When you've made somebody mad, sometimes you have to have the grace to give them space to say, you have the right to be as angry with me as you want to be. And I know in that anger, you might act out and say things that aren't reflective of our time together. I'm giving you grace because the totality of our relationship isn't the sum of this situationship. Now, that might not be true, but if it is, do we give grace to people that we're in relationship with because it's based on the totality of the relationship and not this situationship, no matter how egregious it appears or stark it feels from what is normal? We got to lead with grace and then humble ourselves to say, not only were you wrong, I, here's my role. Here's why I understand how you're feeling your way, because here's my role. I accept that. I'm deeply sorry for it. I apologize for it. And humble yourself and say, but I don't want to close out this relationship this way. And I think you want me to pay these last 2 months because you're angry with me. And I understand that. But I really, as a business owner, don't want to put that money into a place where I'm not going to be staying. And it would bring me no peace to live there. And I think for 2 months, we could find someone that you approve of to stay for those 2 months. You might have to show your vulnerability to say, you got me dead to right. It's my obligation. But here's how I want to leave out of this not having any more financial obligation to it. And I know that might take you some prayer or thought because you're angry with me. And you never know what that little bit of vulnerability might do for the other person, that little bit of humility. Because oftentimes we don't lead with the humility. We say, well, this was your fault if you hadn't. But if we lead with that humility and lead with vulnerability and be open and have grace for how people respond, people will respond to situations, sometimes without thinking of the totality. That's why I tell you, God, this love is something else that he doesn't look at Marcus Holmes by the situations that Marcus might create or find himself in. He looks at the totality of the relationship value at the price of the blood of Jesus. And I would encourage you to do the same, to look at the relationships in the totality of the value of the relationship that is brought to you and not just one situation. I still say that's big, that's grown folk stuff. That's not for the faint of heart. Because if someone breaks your heart, and only somebody really that got in it can really do that. If someone shatters your self-esteem, and only somebody that was attached to it could really do that. It's hard to look at the totality when what has been considered egregious or violent or stark is right in front of you. But I was saying, and mediator, some people aren't civil when it comes to hurt. That's okay. It's not, you're not seeking their civility. It's almost like overcome evil with good, Bilal. You're not seeking their civility. You're giving them grace not to be civil because you know what their anger has led them to. You're called to civility with grace, even when the other person doesn't understand civility. When you're angry and you haven't developed emotional intelligence, you might not even be able to sit in your anger, right? But there must be a remedy for anger if the Bible says be angry and sin not, right? So unless you know how to sit in it and master it, then you have grace when people are unable to do that, because that's most of the times when we're not civil, is when we're angry or we're fearful, right? Those things, one of the things that you can give to help heal them is light and grace, and just be open to the fact that somebody's going to be angry enough to cuss you out. Saying, I'm not a proponent of being cussed out. I'm Herbert Holmes' son every day. but I understand how you got this angry. So I'm gonna walk away so we can talk when cooler heads prevail, because we're not gonna get anywhere. I know you're angry, and I know you want to tell me a bunch of stuff, and I don't want you to feel unsafe. I'm just gonna, can we talk about this later? Okay. Okay. I know you think I'm a son of a B and I'm a MFA, and I get it. And my mama one too. You know, I'm black, so you can't say my mama, right? But I'm gonna offer you grace, because after all, I did cheat on you. After all, I did shove you. After all, I did my part. And so I'm humbling myself and I'm sorry. I'm sorry of what I did in this. But we got to get through this. We got to talk through this. So you got to give grace. Even when, and it's not for the faint of heart, people can be uncivil. Florine McLean, thank you for joining us. Click share. I hope you attack someone. People can be uncivil. Vincent Morris joined us. I'm sorry. I love to announce to people that come, because you don't have to come on a Tuesday night to Love and Stuff, and I love it. I appreciate it. So whether you're watching us on the Love and Stuff page, the Marcus Our Homes page, on Twitch TV, YouTube events, we appreciate you on. I hope you will click share. We're talking, as we normally do, from the inbox of a gentleman who, after a 4-year relationship, 3 years of living in with his girlfriend, they are separating. There's 4 months left on the lease. He's willing to pay for 2 and help her to get a roommate. She's saying absolutely not. And sometimes when you get to the end of a relationship, you have to work to end it with humility, vulnerability, and grace. And I think that's a good breeding ground to be able to find some compromise, because oftentimes what the other person is awaiting for you to say is, I was wrong too. That this here that broke down ain't just you. I was wrong too. So I'm sorry. I hurt you. I betrayed your trust. And that's not for the faint of heart. That takes big boy draws, big girl panties, right? Because our nature, we don't necessarily want to be wrong. And if you've been hurt, you want to focus on the fact that you've been hurt, not that you hurt somebody else, even if you feel like your hurt was in response to being hurt. You don't want to focus on what you did. You want to focus on what happened to you. And I'm saying, while you're doing that, because you have a right to make that choice, consider that you might need to humble yourself. Consider that you might need to be vulnerable and really tell the truth of what is really your thoughts. As this gentleman from the inbox said, I cheated on her and used her weight gain as an excuse. Boy, I thought that that was pretty big of him to say, because it would be just as easy to say, well, you got fat. Well, no, somebody gaining weight is not an excuse to cheat, but we use it. We use it if a man can't provide as much as the next guy, right? Some ladies will say, well, he could take me out to dinner and you couldn't. We make all kinds of excuses. Here you have this gentleman owning, I used her weight gain as an excuse to cheat. Now, when I asked him, had he told her that, he had not. But imagine if he said, I just want to tell you how sorry I am. I realized that I talked you down about gaining weight and I used it as an excuse to cheat. It was a sorry excuse, and I'm sorry that I did that. See, oftentimes we're waiting to hear that validation that there's nothing wrong with me because I gained weight. Now, it could pose some health challenges, right? But it didn't devalue who I am. And we're waiting for the other person to tell us what we really already know. And sometimes that's just enough to crack open the door for vulnerability, to say, here I am, all my cards laid on the table. I want to get out of this relationship, but I don't want it to cause financial stress for either of us, because that's what he's really saying. It's not going to put me outdoors. I can get another place, but I don't want to have to pay for another place and pay for this place. Not if I don't have to. Right? And then give Grace to hear her response. Because it could be still steeped in anger and frustration and betrayal and hurt and PTSD and all other traumas that are brought back to the surface from your proposed abandonment. Be open. And what I will share, as I've shared with him, as we go to a close this 9:31, and I thank all of you that are here and have come. When you are winding out relationships that are contentious, if you decide to wind them out, because I don't want the last of the story to mean because you have big conflict, you can't get through it. Though that's the topic, I think, of another show. You can get through big conflict with this theme, I'm going to call it, of the relationship is overarching the situationship. The relationship, its total value should weigh more to you than the situationship. Now, in every case, it may not. But if there is the chance, the potentiality that it does, get you a third-party counselor to help you navigate through it so that you can look at the total value of the relationship and see whether or not this situationship is something you can work through. But if you decide that that's not for you, that it is time to part a relationship, and it's been contentious, it's been volatile, it's been there's been betrayal and egregious behavior, as you're going to split up physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially, do these 3 things. Humble yourself. Be vulnerable. And have grace. It's been a great show. I hope that you will continue to join us on Tuesdays from 8:30 to 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. Whether you are on the Love and Stuff community page, the Marcus R. Holmes page on Facebook, the Twitch TV HR Passion page, YouTube Events HR Passion page, that you will click share and tag 5 of your closest friends or connections, 5 of your more popular ones, to join us in these inbox topic discussions. That you will consider purchasing our book as we are on the road to grateful, the gratefulness journey every day. What are you doing in the next 30 days to transform your life? Is available on Amazon, Kobo, and Barnes and Noble. We are on the road to grateful, the road to Thanksgiving. We live to thank. Gratefulness journey every day. We hope that you will join us on the Love and Stuff community page by clicking that bell to be notified of future events, joining our Inside of Love and Stuff group to learn more about the people that are inside of Love and Stuff, and join us on Thanksgiving Day. We will be live from 11 to 8. We will do it in shifts just like we did last year, but there will be somebody on each hour, every hour, maybe some half hours, where you can come into the laughter room and just have laughter, where you can come into the prayer room if you want prayer, where you can come and share holiday stories, because our goal is that we understand we're still in a pandemic and there are still some that are going to decide not to gather in large gatherings. And there will be people who will be at home. Some will be alone. Some have lost family members due to this terrible, horrific virus. And so family is not the same for you. Well, Love and Stuff is a family. It's a community of love. And we want to share Thanksgiving Day with you. And so we'll have open rooms through Zoom, which will be live right here for you to just share. If you want to go in some of the rooms where there will be private rooms where you can go for prayer and other things, we'll have that as well, just to let you know that you are loved and you're not alone for the holiday. And maybe your table won't be filled with food, but your day can be filled with the presence and the gift of others' presence through the Love and Stuff community. I'm Marcus Holmes, the love activist, and I hope that you will join our Love and Stuff community by going to the community page, clicking follow, and then go under groups and join inside of Love and Stuff so that you can get to hang out a little bit more with the great folks that are within the Love and Stuff community and learn more on your journey to love. Our goal is to increase the amount of love in the world. And some will say that's nebulous, but if you take it just to this level for you, if you worked on loving yourself, increasing the amount of love for yourself, if you worked on increasing the amount of love for your God, if you worked on increasing the amount of love for your neighbor, our world has the potential to change. See, I can't measure each individual amount, but I can tell you that communities change by love. Relationships change by love. Love is an action. And if you put love into action and increase the amount and frequency of those actions, we're going to change the world, even if it just starts with yours. I'm Marcus Holmes. Thank you so much for joining us. Just checking across platforms to make sure, all right, that we're good in every platform. Thank you so much. Again, thank you for being here. And I hope that we will see you in these Love and Stuff streets very soon.